Thanks very much, Peter. Let me begin by wishing all of you a truly wonderful 2014. I mean it from my heart. But I know that already you're beginning to feel that 2014 will be another wasted year under the Democratic Labour Party. But there is a solution to this despair that you feel, and it is right before your eyes. And that solution is in the people of Barbados standing up and saying, enough is enough. What is particularly hurtful is that we were here before. I don't mean in St. James Secondary School. I don't mean on political platforms. I mean that Barbados was at one time in our not too distant past faced with the same kind of peril and perdition that we are faced with now. And you know, I was never a bad-behaved little boy, but a cocktail or a little punishment always used to tell me, don't do that again. Don't do that again. One would have hoped that the hardship that Barbados went through in the late 80s and the early 90s under a Democratic Labour Party administration should have been lessened enough so that whenever they won government, they should have begun by saying, not that we promised to do this and promised to do that, they should have begun by saying, we will never take the people of Barbados back down that road. They didn't do it. And here we are once more. And it is the second cut that hurts the most. And that's what we have now. We now have the second cut. Your memories are not dim. There may be a few of the people here who, in the 87 to 94 period, might have been going to primary schools, but you would have heard your parents talk about it. But Harry Russell knows only too well that the Democratic Labour Party won multiple successive elections through making grand promises and failing to disclose what they knew to be true. And I agree with you when you say that in your mind, you don't know, but in your mind, they knew, they had to know what the situation with the foreign exchange was going to be like in the not too distant future. I was part of an administration that every single step of the way we were required to think ahead. What is it that I am doing today and how will it impact on tomorrow? That perhaps was one of the hallmarks of Owen Arthur's leadership. You mean to tell me that they could go in to an election, they could go into a new estimates period and have no idea on the potential calls that could have been made on the foreign exchange in this country to such a vast degree? If you remember that old saying, fool me once, was it? Shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So the people of Barbados are now in a fool me twice scenario. We have been fooled twice. We've been fooled in '86, and we've been fooled again 2006, sorry, we've been fooled again 2008, and we've been fooled again now in 2000. Well, again, all these years, it seems as though all the Dems ever do is fool the people of Barbados. That is what it amounts to, doesn't it? And having been here before, you are once more seeing ball by ball the deterioration of our fair land. I want to remind you that during the period 1994 to 2008, the glory days of Barbados, you know, they then say that, oh, when all the coffers were full, we didn't restructure the economy. You know, the problem is that you only get coffers full when once you have successfully restructured the economy. But they couldn't figure that out. So they're still throwing about words like restructuring the economy, when in fact they are destroying the economy. They're not restructuring anything. Theirs is a mission of destruction. But I want to remind you that there was a time when Barbados was a country that was full of potential. In the international arena, they talk about indicators. Indicators is just a nice word, but it just means that there's something that tells us that the future is bright. And we had the right educator, we had the right indicators in our education system. We had the right indicators in our social services. We had some of the right indicators in our tourism. Barbados, as you well remember, was looked upon as a model state, not just within the Caribbean, but in the developing world. But in 6 short years, we have now fallen from grace and are now considered to be junk. You know, when we talk about junk, I want you to realize, I think there's a part of the Bible that says the power of life and death is in the tongue. I don't think the Democratic Labour Party understands what they have done to the psyche of Barbadians by allowing our economy to reach such pitiful state that nobody wants to lend us any money except on the worst possible conditions, and now our credit rating is junk. It was junk before the elections, and just when you think it couldn't get any junkier, it get junk. I don't know how much lower it is going to junk, you know. I don't know if the economists can tell me when once you have reached the bottom, how much further you can go. But the fact that our economy is now an economy that is characterized by junk is having a wicked and vicious effect on the psyche of all Barbadians. And the Frandel Stewart will use all kinds of fancy language. Nobody could declare Barbados to be junk and so on. You know, it is their doing that has caused us to be considered as junk. Nobody from outside can come to Barbados and say, man, Frandel, you know, I don't like how you look, or Chris Sinclair, I don't know, whatever. Or nobody comes to our country and just whimsically decides that our economy is near worthless. They come to our country and they make that determination based on the kinds of things that the government has been doing. And oh Lord, I want to tell the Democratic Labour Party that the time has come to stop blaming OINAFA and the bees. You've had now 6 years. The only body to blame for the sending home of the drainage workers, it isn't the international economy. It isn't the Barbados Labour Party. It is simply the fact that the Democratic Labour Party needed desperately to win an election, and they went up and down in this country and did whatever they had to do. And the chickens have now come home to roost. You know, when we look back at the election, and it's still fresh in my memory, remember the ads that said, man, if the Barbados Labour Party win, we can send home people? And frighten everybody. Frighten everybody. We can send home people, we can do this, we can do that. But you know, they were laying the wicket because they had expected to lose. They had expected to lose, so they would have been able to say, c'est où c'est? But when they say the c'est où they're actually now pointing at themselves. You know, when you point a finger at somebody, most of them pointing back at you. And so today we are in a country where those painful wounds that we felt in the early 1990s of 4,000 people going home. I remember the newspaper ad, there was a donkey at Public Works. And they had a picture of that dog. I don't remember the donkey name, but they said they even sent home the donkey. You may not remember it. It was one of the funniest pictures I've ever seen. Public Works even sent home the donkey. I could think of about 15. I'm not going to say it. Ms. Marshallson is not known for making those kinds of comments. I'm not going to start today. But there are a few who behave in that fashion, who are in government, who could do with a good sending home. You know who they are. You know who they are. Now, the labor movement in Barbados, and I said that the Barbados Labour Party supports the labor movement, and that is our position. But sometimes you have to say that a fella wasn't really thinking, because the Prime Minister made his decision, the Minister of Finance made his decision, and then said, but if you have any proposals, you could send them in. Now, nobody makes a decision and then says to you, but if you have any proposals, you could send them in. You thought that they would have learned from the university, because they insisted that the students will now be paying fees to the university, and then Frandel Stewart says, but if you have any proposals, please send them in. So what we have is a government that is making decision after decision, and being confronted with their stark unpopularity, holds out to you an olive branch and says, but if you have any decisions, send them in, knowing full well that they have already made the decision. I sat in Parliament, and I did not hear Chris Sinclair say, we are thinking about sending home 3,000 people. I did not hear Chris Sinclair say, man, I feel like we can gotta send home 3,000 people. Chris Sinclair said, the government will be sending home 3,000 people, and the first 2,000 of them will be gone by the 15th of January, and the remaining 1,000 will be gone by the 1st of March. So, good Lord, what proposals exactly would the Minister of Finance want to hear from somebody? You know, one of the remarkable things about this administration is their ability to talk. They talk and talk and talk. Not Frandel. He doesn't have the power of speech. Frandel, you know, somebody was making a joke, and they said that if Frandel had to give a speech, the best kind of interpreter would be that fella from South Africa who was doing something. No disrespect intended, but you know, sometimes you have to have a good laugh, right? But what we have you noticed in the last 6 years that this administration has been trying to boost up people's confidence by making announcement after announcement? I think I've noticed it. Announcement after announcement after announcement. David Thompson, God rest his soul, announced Pickering. He announced this, he announced that, none of which have come to pass, but the announcements were intended to make you feel better. Okay? And they may have worked. It may have worked. Those announcements may have been intended to make you feel better. But when you see that none of the things that were announced have materialized, then you must ask yourself, have I been fooled yet again? It is no comfort to the 3,000 people who are going home. Don't let the unions be misled. Those 3,000 people are going home, because Frandel Stewart and his cabinet say so. They're going home. Is there any comfort to those people to hear Chris Sinclair gallerying on TV on a press conference to say that we are going to build this year 750 low to middle income houses that will bring in $50 million to the economy? I said to myself, that sounds like Pickering all over again. And if you think about it, it is as foolish and as baseless as Pickering. And I'm very happy that Mr. Russell and Mr. Taylor are here, because sometimes us political folks get carried away, right? So if I'm wrong, please feel free to correct me. When you bring in foreign exchange, it means that somebody from outside of Barbados is going to invest in Barbados, bringing US dollars in. That is investment 101. That's the first lesson on the first day. Now tell me which foreign investors are going to come into Barbados and buy low to middle income houses. But even the Barbadians not buying the low income houses that NAC has built. They're not buying them. So once again, you have another announcement that is intended to make those 3,000 people feel better, that is intended to say to somebody, we have a plan to turn around this economy, and it is going to blow everybody out of the water, and you're going to be so impressed by it that just now everybody will be able to come back to work. Not true. The only blowing out of the water is the Barbadian economy. So these pronouncements that they're making do not give me any comfort, and I don't want to give those 3,000 people who are going home any comfort. And don't feel that it is those 3,000 people, because some of those 3,000 people, or all of them, will buy food from the little mini-mart in the district. They will buy gas. They will pay a hairdresser. All of those things. But those 3,000 people now can't do that anymore. In fact, the reason things were so bad in Barbados at Christmas is because them 3,000 people couldn't afford to go and even buy a ham. You know, it's funny, last December, the Constituency Councils, they gained out hams left, right, and center. I don't think they gave one this year. Not one. You know, in St. Joseph, I had an opponent who, with the Constituency Council, was giving out hampers faster than I could put them together. In fact, some people get 2 and 3 hampers because they pass by and drop off one, and pass by and drop off another. And so by the time their marshal get there with his little basket of goodies, the cupboard is full. But not a thing out of the Constituency Councils this Christmas. You know, we are truly at the crossroads. And there are some Barbadians who are saying, man, I don't like the idea that the Barbados Labour Party is calling for a change of government. It sounds like you don't want things to run its course. Why you don't give the people a chance to finish the job to start? Well, my response to that is, you know, if I see a man killing me, I ain't give a chance to finish the job that he start. I ain't want he finish that job that he start. I want somebody to save me. And that is why we are here. And we begin by saying, this is a people's assembly. And Mr. Russell, you may not know where you stand, but you stand alongside me and alongside all of the other right-thinking Barbadians who feel that we cannot abide another 4 years of this. We can't abide another 4 years of this. There is nothing rosy on the horizon. There is nothing that the Prime Minister will say. There is nothing that Chris Sinclair is saying to give anybody any confidence. There is nothing at all positive happening in government, and people have lost confidence. Now, both of these fine gentlemen, Mr. Taylor and Mr. Russell, I don't have to keep calling them, but they have been in the most senior of positions. And they know that when you lose confidence in an individual, there's only one thing to do. Let him go. There's no point keeping him, because all that will happen is that the organization will continue to fester and get gangrene, and sooner or later somebody is going to lose a life. This administration is an administration that has not only lost the confidence of Barbadians, they've lost the confidence of the international community, they have lost the confidence of anybody who is anybody. But in that list of people, the ones who matter most are the people like you and I here today. And if you lose the confidence of the IMF, maybe if you still had the confidence of the Barbadian people, you'd be somewhere. But there is not a fellow who could tell me that Barbadians today have any confidence in this administration. And when that happens, the time has come for you to go. We're not advocating any rioting. We're not advocating any unlawful assembly. We are simply saying that the people in the Democratic Labour Party must have a conscience and know that when the people of Barbados give them their marching orders, it has come time to call an election. Whether it is a year after the last one, 2 years after the last one, there's nothing wrong with calling it early. If you're so confident, Frondell Stewart, go back to the people of Barbados and say, you don't love me no more. And if they say they love you, then people like me and Edmund and Peter will have to hush up. But they can't take that chance, because I see DLP supporters every day who are more at the throat of Chris Sinclair and his buddies than any Barbados Labour Party supporter. Because they are the ones who feel most betrayed and most let down. Because when we were wearing our things red, we wearing red because things red, they were subjecting us to the worst of insults and treatment as we walked up and down this country fighting for a better life. And now the shame that they bear on their shoulders is so great. I am so proud when I see one of our red shirts on the road, because that is an individual with conviction. I don't see anybody wearing, we going with them's now, them's again anymore. The last time I saw one of those t-shirts, a car washer was using it to wash somebody's tires. I believe they've put them all in mothballs. They've put them all in mothballs. They don't want to touch them. Now, the Barbados Labour Party has a magnificent heritage. We came to Barbados in 1994 when things were at their worst, and reached out a helping hand and said, we could make a difference in your life. And for 14 years, that is exactly what we did. That time is upon us once more. I began by saying, we were here before. We were in this place where the Barbadian economy was in the gutter. But we are also in a place where the Barbados Labour Party is once more reaching out a hand to this country and saying, we can do better. Good night and God bless.